12 yards from goal. One ball, one line painted on the grass, one man standing over it. 80,000 people are screaming. Hundreds of millions more are watching from home. And yet, for the player standing over that ball, the world has gone almost completely silent. His heart rate has spiked past what most doctors would call dangerous during a resting checkup. His hands are shaking slightly. He probably won't remember that later. He has trained for this moment since he was 7 years old, and in about 4 seconds, everything he's ever worked for will be decided by a single kick. This is the World Cup penalty shootout, the most psychologically brutal moment in professional sport. And what's happening inside that player's brain right now is far stranger and far more fragile than anyone watching at home realizes. Because the truth is, at this level, the game isn't really being won or lost on the field. It's being won or lost in the 6 inches between a player's ears. Let's start with the pressure itself. Because pressure isn't a feeling, it's a chemical event. The moment a player realizes millions of people are watching, and one mistake could end his country's tournament, his body reacts exactly like it would to a genuine physical threat. Adrenaline floods his system. Cortisol spikes. His muscles tense, ready to fight or flee something that isn't actually chasing him. Scientists call this the stress response, and it evolved for exactly one purpose: survival against predators. It was never designed for taking a penalty kick in front of 1 billion people, which creates a strange problem. The same chemical flood that would help you outrun a lion can actively sabotage fine motor skill. The precise footwork, the delicate touch, the split-second decision-making that scoring a goal actually requires. Under pressure, a player's body is preparing to fight or run. But football doesn't need fight or flight. It needs a scalpel. And the body just handed him a sledgehammer. This is why players who look completely composed during a normal match can suddenly miss an open goal or scuff a penalty they'd score 9 times out of 10 in practice. It's not a lack of skill. It's a body doing exactly what evolution built it to do, at exactly the wrong moment. Psychologists call this choking under pressure, and it happens through a mechanism called explicit monitoring. Here's how it works. Elite skills, the kind a professional footballer has drilled tens of thousands of times, are supposed to run on autopilot. The brain hands control to muscle memory, and the conscious mind gets out of the way. But under extreme stress, something backfires. The conscious brain suddenly barges back in. It starts trying to consciously control movements that were never meant to be consciously controlled. The exact angle of the foot, the precise moment of contact. The player starts thinking about the thing his body already knew how to do, and that's often enough to break it entirely. It's the same reason a professional pianist can freeze mid-performance on a piece they've played 1,000 times. Not because they forgot how, because they suddenly started trying to remember how, and the trying got in the way. But here's what separates the players who walk away from a shootout as legends from the ones who become the subject of a nation's grief for 20 years. It's not raw skill. It's what they do with the 4 seconds before the kick. Elite players are trained, obsessively, to interrupt the panic response before it takes over. Slow, deliberate breathing to physically override the racing heart. A fixed pre-shot routine, repeated identically every single time, because a familiar ritual signals safety to a brain convinced it's under threat. Some players stare at a single fixed point on the goal and refuse to look at the goalkeeper at all. Because the goalkeeper's movement is a distraction their nervous system doesn't need right now. None of this is superstition. It's applied neuroscience, disguised as habit. And it explains something else. Why the greatest players in history so often look almost unnervingly calm in the biggest moments, while commentators lose their minds around them. That calm isn't the absence of pressure, it's pressure, successfully redirected. Now flip it. What happens after the miss? The ball sails over the bar. The goalkeeper doesn't even have to move. In the space of half a second, that player goes from being a national hope to what feels, in his own mind, like a national failure. This is where World Cup psychology gets genuinely dark. Research on elite athletes shows that a single high-profile failure, especially one broadcast to hundreds of millions of people, can trigger something close to traumatic memory encoding. The brain, flooded with adrenaline and cortisol at the exact moment of failure, burns that memory in with unusual intensity. It's the same mechanism that makes war veterans replay a single moment for decades. Except this trauma gets replayed publicly, forever, on television, every 4 years, whether the player wants it or not. Some players carry a single missed penalty for the rest of their careers. Some never fully recover the fearless instincts they had before it happened. Others do something remarkable instead. They use it. Sports psychologists have a term for what separates the players who collapse under public failure from the ones who come back stronger: post-traumatic growth. Instead of the failure becoming the player's identity, it becomes fuel. The story they tell themselves shifts from, "I am someone who fails under pressure," to, "I am someone who has already survived the worst moment football can offer, and I'm still here." That reframe isn't automatic, it's deliberate, often built with a sports psychologist over months, sometimes years. But when it works, it produces something remarkable to watch. A player who 4 years later walks up to take the exact same kick, in the exact same tournament, with what looks like more calm than he had the first time. Not because the stakes got smaller, because his brain finally learned it could survive them. There's another layer to all of this that rarely gets talked about. What happens to a player's sense of self when an entire country decides he's either a hero or a villain, sometimes within the same 90 minutes? Players describe an almost dissociative split: the private person who trains alone at 6 a.m., who has doubts, who gets nervous, versus the public symbol that 80,000 people are screaming at, blaming, or worshiping, who barely resembles the private person at all. Carrying both of those identities at once, under global scrutiny, for a month straight, is its own psychological weight that has nothing to do with football skill. Some players compartmentalize successfully. Others burn out quietly, long after the cameras have moved on to someone else. And then there's the moment right before kickoff of the tournament itself, before any of this pressure has even been tested. Sports psychologists describe an unusual mental state elite athletes train for called flow: total immersion in the task, where self-consciousness disappears completely and performance becomes almost automatic. In flow, a player isn't thinking about the crowd, the stakes, or the score. He's not thinking about scoring a legendary goal. He's just kicking a ball, the way he's done 10,000 times before, in an empty field as a child, for the pure joy of it. The paradox at the heart of elite performance is this: the players who perform best under the most pressure in human sport are the ones who have trained themselves to feel, internally, almost none of it. They haven't eliminated the pressure. They've learned to disappear from it for exactly 90 minutes or exactly 4 seconds, and let the part of them that already knows how to do this take over. So the next time you watch a player step up to a penalty spot with the entire world holding its breath, remember what you're actually looking at. Not just a footballer, a human nervous system under more acute psychological pressure than almost any job on earth will ever produce, fighting in real time against 300,000 years of evolution that never once prepared it for a stadium, a scoreboard, or a billion pairs of eyes. And somehow, some of them find a way to be still. That stillness, not the goal itself, might be the single most extraordinary thing in the entire tournament.